Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back at the Red Bull Ring. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between. It is the Austrian Grand Prix show. Woo! We are so excited about today's show. It is going to be so much fun. But of course, we have to get into the news, pit crew, because it was not all fun and games at the Austrian Grand Prix. No, there were some incidents of harassment going on down there. And I'm just saying, like, if everyone every week needs to put out a statement towards something that went down, maybe we should start looking at institutional changes to the sport.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like
those changes might cost money.
So, have you seen how expensive those tickets are?
No,
okay, most of that goes to the track. But like, it doesn't.
Those changes, if you're going to put in those changes, that could cause a decrease in revenue. So
okay, but look at our sponsors.
Most changes.
All I'm saying is they may lose money.
But most changes that people have recommended on Twitter, that doesn't cost money. Like having a help hotline printed on the tickets or having a code of conduct printed on the tickets, that doesn't cost money. That like they're already printing the tickets.
Okay, hold
or
on.
like putting out a statement or like a track map and some information on what fans can do. That doesn't cost money.
Okay, but yeah, listen. They can do all of that stuff, but who says people are actually going to follow them? Specifically, the code of conduct.
Okay.
Specifically, the code of conduct. If you want to put actual rules and like implement like actual things that will help people, you need to spend a little bit of money or lose a little bit of money. That's all I'm saying.
It takes time. All they need is time. And if they don't want to put in that time, then it's not going to happen. But let's stop. Let's stop skipping around the actual problem and like what actually happened. Right? Because it's so easy to sort of say, oh, there was harassment on track. But no, there was harassment of fans. There was catcalling.
Like
I mean, just the stories on Twitter.
It's just horrendous.
It was horrendous. And the sad thing is that this is not the first time this has happened. There's a year-long, it's been going on for years. And at this point, I mean, for me, like, I hear what you're saying, it costs money, but at the same time, if you want us to keep investing into the sport, Formula One is going to have to put their money where their mouth is. Let's be honest. Their sponsors they have Rolex as sponsors. They have Emirates as sponsors. They have Heineken as sponsors. They have DHL as sponsors. Like, it's time, like, they gotta put their money where their mouth is. Yes, Afi.
First of all, so you're wearing my shirt. Second of all, I would just like to say that I am not opposed to any changes being made because I would also be one of the first to be harassed at a race, right? But all I'm saying is a reason why we're not seeing changes as quickly is because it costs money. And specifically those changes that will actually work, F1 may not want to put them in because it costs a little. Yes, it's not a good excuse to them. It's not, and I agree it's not a good excuse.
What about a simple like ban though? Like you see someone just made an accusation.
That's what pro sports do.
That's
what pro sports do. They have a report hotline, and if you do report them, they get removed.
Exactly.
But so the thing is, there's just so many. Right? Because like the reports aren't like, oh, there's a couple of people. No, grandstands, whole grandstands. It's like, what? You're just gonna walk in and take all of them out? That takes resources.
Exactly.
Like one person, fine.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Because the sport, and I've talked about this before, has class. This sport, like as I said, is sponsored by Rolex. It's sponsored by all these big sort of companies whose whole brand is luxury, right? And, you know, the race in Monaco and all those things. That's what Formula One is. Fine. It gives us the name of rich horse racing. But at least there's respect. At least there's charisma. There's sort of that high level pro sport there. It's kind of like Wimbledon, right? And
I understand that. Go ahead. Sorry, Salim. I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
And, you know, part of luxury comes with, okay, now this is going to sound really weird, ethics, right? You know, as much as rich corporations and such don't have ethics, I feel like just sort of the idea of luxury comes with a certain set of etiquette. You know, that's the word that I'm looking for, etiquette. And I feel like Formula One sort of lost touch with that because of their policies and because of the things that they've done. I mean, not to mention Max Verstappen's fans are not helping.
That's
I mean, but then again, I don't think you need to like yeet the whole grandstand. I think like everyone's egged on by each other. So you yeet the one that's the worst one, and then take it, and then that hopefully maybe might set an example, or yeet a section of them. I don't really care. The point is that, you know, it's sad that I am now starting to compile a list of races that I do not know if I can feel comfortable going to. Like the Dutch Grand Prix I already wrote off.
Yeah,
no. What's it called? Belgium, I'm now hearing things. Oops. I did not ever honestly think that Austria was going to be, even though the Red Bull ranked fine, I did not think that Austria was going to be one of those races that I thought that I might have to like go with like a group of people with. And I don't have enough friends. Hopefully I do now after the show and all that fun stuff. But like, I don't have enough like people at the moment that are willing to fly all the way to Austria just to watch a Grand Prix. So like, I just, you know, it's sad. I mean, like, how many more of these races I'm going to have to add to this list? Am I going to add half of them? Like
Austria, kind of Hungary, like, Germany, if that was still a thing.
Because Hungary, you know, I just was in Budapest and and it was such a lovely city. So like, I'm sad that that's
anywhere. And look, I don't want to single them out, right? I don't want to single them out. I'm a nice person, but anywhere where Max Verstappen fans can get to, yeah, as a group. Don't get me wrong. I met some really nice Max Verstappen fans at the Turkish Grand Prix. Right? I had a picture taken with them. They're great. And I think some of the problem does come from allowing drinking during the event.
Why do they kids? You know what? Okay, I'm sorry.
Right? Because that riles people up.
I know they have the 001, right? But it still doesn't make sense to me. I still don't get it.
No, I mean, look,
and I didn't know they allowed drinking. I thought that was one of the habits.
No. I mean, like in like the pastures and things like that, they can't like police that. So like, and then I think there's like stalls and things like that behind. You can, but like there's stalls and things like that also that serve stuff. So that also counts. But I think like I also want to make this painful. I just want to also make this painfully clear that we are not saying that this is all Red Bull fans. This is all Max fans. We have met so many lovely Max fans. We've even had Timo, which shout out to Timo. We still love you and we want you actually for the Dutch Grand Prix.
Yes, please come back.
And Rufra and McCuffrey. We've had so many people that we really McCuffrey, he's even annoying. But like we've had so many people on the show that love Red Bull and like we love that. So we're not saying that this is all Max fans. Unfortunately, from what we're hearing, it seems like it was a number of people that happen to be supporting him that were doing a lot of these incidents, and that is a very sad thing. So I'm hoping that, you know, I don't know if I trust Red Bull, but I'm hoping that the FIA could do something about it, and also the promoters too. That's their track. They need a what's it called?
Pull themselves together.
Yeah, and pull themselves together. Let Afishika say your piece, and then we have to move on.
I think Max needs to say something. I know he's not one for I know he is not one for what's it called?
Words?
Being politically correct.
Words, yeah.
Words. Okay, for words. But I think in this right now for specifically the harassment of not just like of all fans, and hearing that it's coming from his fans, I think he needs to say something about it. Just because maybe it could be helpful. Maybe it could be helpful. And we've seen a lot of other drivers say things. We've seen Pierre, we've seen Sebastian, we've seen Lewis, we've seen even Lance, for this many fans that he has to say something as well. So
he did.
No. As his wife, as his wife, I need to be honest. So, we've seen a lot of drivers say things about, etiquette at races, and I think Verstappen needs to do the same thing. And he has a ton of fans too.
I'm just shocked.
Of course, there's going to be a couple bad apples in there, but he needs to say something to them.
I'm just shocked there's no code of conduct.
Yeah,
on the
that's really
ticket.
shocking.
I mean,
And
or at all.
Sorry, Selon, you want to go ahead? Or
I mean, don't get me wrong. I was not in a busy grandstand when I was in Turkey, but there not a lot happened there. The grandstand was quite sort of peaceful and people were sort of interacting fairly well with each other. But there was also no alcohol at the event. And Turkish people are not really known for riling up unless it's a football match. Then it's gung ho. But, I don't know. It's terrible to see these things happening. And if a friend of mine were to say, "Oh, I'm going to this race," I'd be like, alone? Because it's worrying, it's terrible.
It is.
it is
really
terrible. And the thing is that thinking about it now, I know myself, I haven't been to a race yet. And it's thinking about it now, seeing all this stuff happening, I'm thinking, should I be scared now to actually go to a race? Can I really enjoy myself? Can I have fun? Are there races that I should just, it's right, what Sam said, are there races that now I should be looking at and writing off as a result of this? And Formula One said that they put out a statement and they said that they were talking to the promoters, but then at the same time, what the Sport Ring came up with was putting up on sideboards is, let's have fun, let's respect each other. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a joke, right?
We hope that it's able. Yeah, sorry, Effie.
Sorry, I just want to move on from this topic.
Yeah,
I also want to move on. So,
okay, that's what I mean.
You said you want to move on.
What? I'm not gonna say anything. Oh my days.
To move on. Anyway, we are moving on. Before we start falling out with each other, let's move on. Because we could go and talk about this for ages, but we have a guest and we have a race to get to, and our guest is so cool. He is. You last probably saw him talking to Sky Sports F1, which was very cool. He decided then to come on our pokey little show, which we love him for it. Bryson!
Hello. I'm very glad to be here. If you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I have to make sure that I'm audible and that I'm not sort of half cut off by the edge detection. But
I mean, I'm always hoping that everyone's audible. Otherwise, this podcast will not have a purpose.
No, it'll be very fun if it's not audible. It's just
be mimeable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, yes.
But thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining our show, Bryson. We know you are very, very busy, and it's great that we're doing the show because now, given that where everyone's located, it's only literally been hours since the Austrian Grand Prix, so it's fresh on our minds and we can go into it having fun. But before we go into it, we really love to know what got you into Formula One. What's your story?
It was so interesting hearing you guys talk about whether or not you should go to a race and experience it in person. And the reality is I wasn't getting into Formula One based on what someone said or something on television. I kind of went by accident, honestly. I was working with someone, and I had some friends who were extremely persistent about going to a Grand Prix. And they were just persuasive enough to get me to go. I just didn't have any plans that Sunday. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll go. I mean, I don't really like, cars going in circles, but we will just see how it is. Let's do something fun on the Sunday. And I went, and it was really a transformative experience because you're not really used to objects going that fast, that close to you. You're not used to the sound. You're not used to the smell of the fuel or the smell of the lockups. We see a car lock up into turn one in one of these tracks. When you're at the circuit, you can smell it. You can actually smell the burnt rubber. It's just a very cool atmosphere. And being surrounded by other motorsports fans who love the sport just as much as you do, it's a very unique environment because most of the time, if you see someone with like a Red Bull jersey or a Williams hat, you're like, oh, okay, I see you. You give them the nod, but you keep walking. That's a rare thing. But when you actually go to a race, you're surrounded by these people, and it shouldn't be a situation where anyone's feeling uncomfortable. It should be a mutually beneficial and celebratory kind of experience. And the fact that not everyone can enjoy it in the same way is really problematic for me. And this particular Grand Prix was just the latest example of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, any of the Grand Prix that we have on a calendar should be an inclusatory place for us all. So we're sad that this one unfortunately didn't turn out to be, but we're really grateful that you had that amazing experience and that you were able to enjoy a race like that live. Also, this is a top tip for us: get yourself better friends who can encourage you to go to Grand Prix. I mean, Sullivan was that friend for me from Turkey, and I bailed because he really tried. Like, we were up trying to figure out tickets and things like that. But then I couldn't raise the funds for it. So
honestly, that's one of the biggest issues of Formula One, especially compared to other racing series. It's just too expensive. Like, every part of it's too expensive, but we'll work it out.
Yeah, indeed. And may we ask, what was that? Do you remember the Grand Prix that you went to? Like, what year was that? And
yeah. I'm an old man, so that was the 2005 U.S. Grand Prix in Indianapolis. Now, you may know this race. You may know this race because it was farcical. It was a race where only 6 cars started the race, and Tiago Monteiro was on the podium. But the thing that always drew me to the sport has been the engineering side of it. It's been the cars, right? And even if there were only 6 cars running, it didn't diminish the performance of the cars at all. You still get a sense of what 5G lateral looks like. It's insane. You still get a sense of what 300 plus kilometers per hour looks like. There's no part of that was reduced in any way by having the fewer number of cars. And in fact, I remember Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello having a pretty tasty fight over the course of that race. So yes, that was my first race, and then I've sort of been following the sport ever since. I had never really been as into it as I am now. If you ever watch one of those exponential growth curves, that's what's been happening. Just a little bit here, and then just wow, everything changes very drastically in a short time. But it's been a very positive thing. I've learned so much more about this sport in the last year and a half than I knew in the last 5 years. So it's just been a really positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know if I can say for the rest of the girls and I, but in our family, it's been a bit of an exponential growth as well. I mean, it started with our dad, as we've said before on the show, then came Asay, and then I came the year after, and then Afi, as she grew up, started getting more into it, and now we're just all 5 of us are super into the sport. With even Afi. And mom too. Yeah, we had our mom on before the show.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it, is that it's the essence of it is so simple. Build a race car that can go as fast as possible around a racetrack and beat everyone else around you. It's so simple. It's so visceral that it connects to all kinds of demographics and people. Everyone can understand what you're trying to do, and yet to actually execute that is written in thousands of details of engineering and race strategy and things. It's a beautiful sport. I really love it a lot.
It really is. And with that, we can get into the show because that was beautiful. What a segue.
That was so dramatic.
Let me be dramatic for a bit. Anyway, I am the drama queen. Okay, so let's get into it. There was literally no difference between who the top 3 for qualifying and for the sprint race. So we're just going to talk about that at the exact same time. Your pole sitter and sprint winner was Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc came second, and Carlos Sainz came in third, which was about the only happyful thing that happened to Carlos Sainz over the course of that weekend. Oh my gosh.
Matteo Binotto was there after last weekend, just tinkering with Sainz's engine, seeing what he can get to break.
Why? Bro, what? Ben? Oh my days.
We're
Ben,
switching to plan E. We're switching to plan E.
Explode the engine, pretty much.
I'm sorry, Carlos. Carlos, if you hear this somehow, I apologize, man. That's a low blow. That's my fault. I'm sorry.
Look, I'm starting more to become like a Carlos stan, and like
Carlos is great.
You mentioned the sprint race. I do want to say 2 really quick things about it. Is that the sprint race, the race itself isn't always amazing, but it does give you a lot of really relevant information for the actual race. The 2 things we really learned from the sprint were, number 1, the top speed of the Haas was like really, really impressive. And in fact, the race speed of the Haas was actually very good as well. So there's some indication as to how hard they would be to overtake by Mercedes and anyone else. It gave a good indication of what was going to have to be done during the race. But also, if you looked at Charles Leclerc, it's weird. It's almost like he chose deliberately to let Max go during the sprint. If you look at the laps that he put together towards the end of the sprint, they were very competitive on worn tires, and they gave some indication as to how good he was actually going to be in the race. So we did learn some things from the sprint, even if it wasn't the most amazing race ever.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I think it was, just also looking at that battle between like Schumacher and Hamilton as well too during the sprint, it was white, like, look at Affy's husband go. Second husband go.
What did you tell him last weekend off the island, on an island off the coast of Kenya?
I can't tell you our personal conversation.
You're not serious. But no, the Haas were very competitive, and also and that's actually interesting to note because I wasn't paying attention to that part of the sprint race. But that makes a lot of sense given how the race played itself out. Literally hours ago. Does anyone else have final thoughts about quality of sprint?
I have a question.
The battle between Lewis.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, please go on.
I was going to say the battle between Mick and Lewis was very, very spicy. Like just seeing them go at it, and and there was once a point where I thought Mick is going to take it. He's going to take the final point, but then no, Lewis comes in and it's like it was very fascinating to see.
Yeah, I think Lewis was a little bit cautious after having crashed a car in qualifying. We think due to some tailwind, but also having it totally repaired, and then it was slightly damaged on the right front corner by Pierre Gasly when they spun. So I can understand him being slightly cautious in trying to overtake Mick and not diving up the inside like Verstappen-esque. But in the end, he got it done. So congratulations to him.
Yeah. And Selim, your question?
Okay, so while we have an expert here, this is an aerodynamical question. I don't know.
I'm not an expert. I am a public F1 tech nerd. Is really the most appropriate description of my job function. I'm a public nerd.
Listen, the nerds run the world, all right?
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're basically an expert amongst us. We are not great.
So, does the Mercedes' smaller footprint, aka no side pods, make slipstream less effective for cars behind them?
So this idea about aerodynamic drag and slipstream is really kind of interesting, right? We always think about the force of the air on the car dragging it backwards, but in fact, because of Newton's third law, it's really the forces on the air as well. The air is being dragged forward as a result of that interaction as well. And when the car drives behind it, it's driving into air that's moving away from it, right? So this, what we call a slipstream, isn't just like a reduction of pressure of the car in front of the car behind. It's actually like a tailwind. You can think of it as a tailwind that you're driving into that generally reduces your downforce and your drag as well. So the question is, how easy does it for someone to follow you is really a function of like how intense that wake behind the car is, how much of that slipstreaming effect are you actually getting by the drag that they're making. You know, it's true that you'll have less drag from the side pods, from having smaller side pods, but that kind of exposes your rear tires more, right? It exposes them to clean air. And in the same way that, you know, the slipstreaming car behind has less drag because it's a car in front of it, if you can get the wake of the front tire to go directly into the rear tire, that could also reduce drag. The issue is Mercedes can't do that. You can use the side pod to guide that front tire wake directly into the rear one, which is something that Ferrari does very, very well. Nice big flat face on the side of the side pod. They can get you very, very low drag in terms of just the rear tire. But with an exposed one, it could be a little bit worse. I mean, the bottom line is Mercedes does not have the fastest car in a straight line. It's kind of draggy. We can have questions about what the actual power level is, but it's a decent amount of drag. I can't really say anything definitive about whether it's easier to overtake it or not. What I can say is that it's different, and different can be better sometimes in Formula One if you're trying to have a performance differential.
That was so interesting.
I understand like literally 30% of that. Literally. I'm a media. I did media and communications. I should be like, you know.
I think I got like 66% of that.
The goal is not to be complex. If there's something that I could explain better, we can have more discussions about it. But one thing I really don't like about the Formula One space sometimes is that sometimes it's deliberately obscured. Sometimes it's deliberately made inaccessible precisely to put up barriers between people. And that doesn't really help anyone. Everyone enjoys the sport more the more you understand it. So part of what I attempt to do, it's unclear how successful I am at it. But one of the things I try to do is see something that I think is interesting and try to explain it in a way that's more accessible to more people. And most of the times I'm successful, but sometimes not. So we'll work on it.
I thought that explanation was good. Like, you should teach physics at my school. Dr. G, I love you, but class.
Let's not dwell on this. Let's go to the next topic before someone else gets called.
And with that, to the race, where that was a bit more of an interesting result. So we had Charles Leclerc after a nail-biting, like literally 10 laps. That was scary. Come first, well-deserved. Max Verstappen, who I feel like was caught a bit off guard and did not have the pace, interestingly, at the Red Bull ring, come second, and miles behind, but we love to see it, Lewis Hamilton was third.
Lewis is building an impressive run of momentum. It's actually his third consecutive podium. I was there for the podium in Montreal, and he also got one in the UK. And I think people are underestimating how significant this momentum shift is. Austria is not a very smooth circuit. I mean, maybe the track surface itself might be smooth, but there's a lot of curbs and you have to kind of get close to them to be fast. That's a circuit where I would have expected Mercedes to be kind of caught by even like McLaren or some other car to get in front of them. But the fact that they had as good of a showing as they did suggests that they're actually going to be stronger on some of the other circuits that aren't quite as smooth as Silverstone. But it also means, importantly, we're going to Paul Ricard next, which is extremely smooth. It's going to be a good track for Mercedes for precisely the same reason that Silverstone was. So keep an eye out on that. I think Paul Ricard, and then we have Hungary after that. I think Mercedes can win a race before the break is over.
I think that will be really interesting. It'll also be interesting to see the hundreds of scandals that come out after Mercedes wins a race.
Yes.
Which is what F1 Twitter seems to be right now.
Something happened. I think it was like the flexi floor was an issue.
Floor.
Red Bull.
There's actually two different flexi floor problems. There's one with the actual plank itself flexing, and then they have these sort of titanium skid blocks that are at the front of it. There's also a separate issue with that, where it's sort of being recessed into the floor to prevent it from wearing away. So this is not one story. This is several stories, and there are many chapters. It'll continue right up into the last race of the year. So get your popcorn ready.
Oh, we love to see it. And then also on our Twitter was made something very interesting about the result. Every time that, I think clarify, make sure. Yeah, can you clarify that? Because I think I want to note that. It's really interesting too about Mercedes.
Well, the thing is that Mercedes has been very consistent with their race results. They have managed to, once again, they've managed to bring both of their cars to a finish line, much less in P3 and P4. Meanwhile, even though Ferrari and Red Bull are considerably faster cars, they both lost their cars. They both lost one of their cars during the Austrian Grand Prix again. So it's just like, looking at it, we don't want to rule out. I mean, we think Mercedes was to watch, just because even though they may not have the fastest car, they are the most reliable and consistent out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think if I remember correctly, Lewis is the only driver left on the grid not to have a DNF this season.
No, sorry.
He's the only one left. I think Stroll was there for a while, but he was classified at the end, but he didn't actually finish the race. And Mercedes' reliability has been incredible. They've been the most reliable team, and they are picking up points where others are dropping them. I mean, look, I still think both of the championships, the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship, only exists theoretically at this point for Mercedes, and even that might not work. I think those championships are out of reach, but they can be fast, and their car is getting faster as the season develops. The most important thing about Mercedes and their developments with this, ambitious zero pod concept is it actually can't be copied. We talked a lot about how Aston Martin sort of copied the Red Bull side pods, and Williams with their B-Spec car kind of copied Alpine and Ferrari and Red Bull in some Frankenstein-esque mixture. But the reality is Mercedes' zero side pod concept is so heavily reliant on the mechanical bits, right? The internal, the irradiators, how far are they sort of recessed into that monocoque? How tightly can you package that? It's so tightly packaged to actually make the zero pod concept possible. Other people can't copy it. So if Mercedes gets to a point where they actually figure out their machine and it's actually faster than the rest of the grid, they could dominate the last few races of the season. You can't rule that out. So I think it's one of the things that we're not talking about all that much, but is really kind of important. Not only is Mercedes getting faster as the season goes on, but they're getting faster in a way that can't easily be replicated. And that's a critical point.
I have a question on that. Then don't you think the FIA might come in and say illegal, or like what happened with Dawes? I think that one season, because they've had a habit of like when Mercedes is technologically advanced, the FIA is like, no.
So the thing about Dawes is that it actually never broke the regulations. It existed in a space that the regulations didn't really anticipate. And as a result, they were able to run Dawes the entire season. It didn't actually become officially illegal until they changed the regulations the next season. By the way, that's the number one indication of whether or not something was actually illegal. If they changed regulations after the fact to make it illegal, it was legal before. Okay, that's the way that is. But no, in terms of what they will do in the future, the FIA has to at least have some pretense of why they're slowing a car down. You can't just say, well, you're winning now, so we're just going to bring you back. They have to give some technical based explanation. And right now, I really don't see it. Mercedes is one of the only teams that said, oh, well, we see the other teams are flexing their floors in creative ways. We didn't know you could do that. Maybe we'll start doing it. maybe we'll start doing it too. So it's clear they have a good handle on the boundaries of what is and what is not illegal. The fact that their pace is already this good, we don't even know what the consequences of this flexi floor drama are going to be. Those will presumably peg back, Red Bull and Ferrari. They're already being caught by Mercedes. So who knows what it could be, when we get back from summer break.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking on like the actual like race and things like that, because the tech is amazing. I want to talk about some of the midfield battles, because we had a repeat of lap 47 of Silverstone with lap like 25, where there was a battle between Zhao, Alonso, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen, and Afishika's second husband. That was actually pretty interesting. And like there was lots of little midfield battles as well too. I mean, there was one where like Vettel and Gasly, which caused a little bit of a spin with Vettel again. There was like Stroll and Schumacher giving back positions for 8. Like there was a lot of little fun stuff. And I'm glad that like, I don't know, I'm glad that it was caught. I mean, I think that was really cool. Yes, Afi.
What's up with Gasly? I feel like lately he's been like intertwined with all of the incidents that's been happening. Like a lot of them, I hear Gasly's name. Like if I
what
were
are you
to hear,
implying
like,
here?
Oh, no.
That's
Wait, no. All I'm saying is every time there's like a racing incident, I expect to hear Gasly's name in it. Like how I expect to hear Yuki spin out, you know? Like it's a similar situation. So lately, is it just me? Am I making things up?
I think sometimes you can just get unlucky in certain situations. Pierre Gasly certainly did not have a great race in Austria. In fact, he was directly involved in Guan Yu Zhou's crash in Silverstone as well. So that's not great. But the great thing about Formula One is you just turn the page and go on to the next race. I fully expect them to have a great race sometime in the near future. I don't know when, but it'll happen.
Podium.
We saw a lot of cars. We saw a lot. Yeah. We saw a lot of cars battling very closely to each other in this race.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw a lot of overtakes. Kind of the center of the bullseye of what the 2022 regulations really aimed to deliver: close racing for multiple laps and multiple overtakes. We've gotten into some public discussions recently about how effective the new regulations have been, and we wouldn't necessarily expect the Red Bull Ring to be the best demonstration of these new regs, but there was plenty of racing and it was great. So I think there may be a debrief after the fact to figure out just what it was that allowed this particular race to unfold in the way that it did. That was very entertaining.
I mean, it also gives me hope for France. It was bored.
France. I think the one thing. Yeah, actually, though, I didn't watch it, but I heard it was good. One thing, the one thing that sort of really helped with these new regulations is sort of the cleanup of the air that sort of comes from the cars, because they've removed a lot of the complicated barge boards on the side and added in Venturi tunnels. And so the air that comes from behind, the air that the cars have to follow, is much cleaner. It's much smoother is not the word I'd use. But like the lines are much smoother. And so
I would
I'm sure Bryson knows better.
But what I would say is that the flow that the car behind is encountering has a higher energy level on average, but also the car itself is less sensitive to disruption. So relying on the floor more so than the wings actually makes the car less sensitive to aerodynamic disruption, on top of the fact that the wake it's throwing up is actually less disruptive anyway. So it's kind of a win-win.
Plus, Mercedes has always been terrible in the dirty air because of just, when you win championships year after year, you sort of plan your car to be in open air for as long as possible. And so I guess now that sort of that dirty air is cleaned up, the Mercedes is a better car in the midfield as well. Because a struggle that we saw with that Mercedes was, it had the best balanced package overall and maybe the best engine. But then once Ferrari and Red Bull started developing, Mercedes really started struggling behind them.
Mm-hmm. One more thing before we wrap up. Can we talk about Sainz's blow up and that engine? It's way.
Benetton is an engineer. I'm still very, 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 very upset with him. He's an engineer. He should get these things right. And the fact that he was tinkering with the car the entire weekend also, and this still happened. Really? Stop touching the car.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume it would have happened 10 laps earlier if he didn't tinker with it. Okay. Let's try to figure out a way to give it the benefit. I mean, here's the truth. That the way the engine let go was actually a little bit scary, because it didn't just have a bunch of smoke coming out the back and then, sputter to a stop. I mean, it detonated. There were elements where there was a pressure wave that actually blew parts of the side pod apart, and they kind of came back together, but they weren't fastened. And the fire afterwards was quite dangerous. And again, we had a slightly weird and unsafe situation where Carlos Sainz has sort of gone onto the runoff area and it's an uphill slope and the car's on fire and he's trying to get out of it, but as soon as he gets out of it and gets his foot off the brake, it starts rolling, so he can't get out. And then they're trying to, he was kind of stuck in it. I mean, the real solution to that is to angle the car towards a wall so that it rolls backwards into the wall. I learned that in San Francisco, but that's another question. But yeah, it was potentially a little dangerous, and I'm just happy that he was able to escape without any kind of burns or anything else.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No, and
This is their 4th power unit change.
And I also want to point out that, like, also they had a great strategy this season. I mean, this previous race. For once, their strategy was actually very on point. They had the pace, they had the strategy. Like, all the stars literally aligned. It aligned very well for Leclerc, and it aligned very well for Sainz until the engine blew out. And as Afi pointed out, that's their 4th PU.
And don't forget, Leclerc had a problem as well in those last few laps.
With the throttle.
Yeah, it's interesting because we actually have access to a lot of the telemetry because of some very smart people who found a way to get access to it. You can actually see the issue with his throttle. If you actually do a comparison of lap 70, you compare his lap to his previous laps or to Verstappen, you can see that the throttle isn't being fully released. It's still like at 20%, even when he's supposed to be completely off of it. So yeah, I would imagine that was a huge problem going into slow speed corners like, turn 3 and turn 4.
Mm-hmm. And it was good, but I mean,
oh,
sorry. We're all over talking each other today.
So much to talk about, though.
There's too much to talk about. But then also another thing with that was oh God, I completely forgot. Oh no, he built up enough of a pace. That's how fast the Ferraris were. They built up enough of a pace that Verstappen couldn't catch him by the time he started having throttle issues. It was just too big. I think it was like 2.5 was the closest, I think, around that mark that he was able to get there. So like, yeah, it was just one of those things. Selim, and then say I haven't heard you talk too much, and then we have to close out. Otherwise, Chale will be here.
No, it's incredibly shocking, and it's just sad because it's like, seeing what happened with like Carlos Sainz. No, at first I had heart palpitations because it's like he can't get out. And at least not yet until the marshals come. But the marshals showed up on time and he was able to get out unscathed. And oh man, just seeing him hunched over.
He just sat down.
It was just sad. And at the same
manager too. The manager literally just like went over and was just like, it was so dramatic.
It was so bad. You gotta feel for Carlos Sainz because he went from hero with winning Silverstone to 0 with the car failure, which isn't even his fault. And it's like it just gets worse and worse.
I think.
I mean,
I don't know. I joked about Binotto tinkering with the engine, but the fact of the matter is Mercedes has always had the best balanced package. Red Bull has always had the best aero package, thanks to Adrian Newey and such. And Ferrari has always had the better engine. And when you're pushing an engine that hard, it's going to happen every now and then. You're going to have reliability problems.
Every now and then.
I was just going to say, it's so weird that we have... I was just going to say really briefly, it's so weird that we have so many reliability problems. I didn't think we were going to have this much reliability problems. We're changing aero, we're changing suspension. We weren't changing the engine aside from the shift to the E10 fuel, which adjusts the compression ratio and some other things. But personally, I have to say, I am kind of shocked at how unreliable the cars have been this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has been shocking. And it's like, if Ferrari's not careful, they will get a penalty. And if they will get a penalty. They will get a penalty. If it's not with Carlos Sainz, it's going to be with Charles Leclerc eventually.
Charles already had one in Canada. He was going to get a 10-place drop for the turbo, but they decided to just change everything, so they started from the back essentially. But they're already getting it. They're already getting there.
And I think
Yeah.
the thing. Sorry, Afi. And the thing with Formula One is these drivers spend so much time inside the cars. You know, they do hundreds of laps in practice and during the race. And so they know their car. And, you know, a lot of Formula One, the engineering side, but there's also the driver side. There's sort of that mentality. And when you're in the car, and, you know, I have minimal karting experience, and so take this with a grain of salt. But the psychology there is the same. When you're sitting in that car, when you're feeling the car and everything is going right, you will be successful. But when there's the slightest thing off about the car, it really, really throws you off. And I'm sure that effect is amplified when you're in Formula One as well. And so, you know, it really is a balance. It's an art of sort of balancing having a good car and having a driver who is happy with the car in and of itself. And there's one thing that we didn't talk about that we didn't see in the sprint race, which is tire strategy and how tire degradation sort of plays into the whole race. And I think it was really interesting to see how the Red Bull was eating up its tires so much faster than the Ferrari, and how these sort of aerodynamics, I mean, tire wear affects aerodynamics, right?
Tire deflection certainly affects aerodynamics, but I mean, how you work the tires is a function of how much downforce you have, but also it's a vehicle dynamics question. How does the car roll and pitch and do all these things under turning forces? I mean, it's a very complex question, but you're right. There's a big difference between single lap pace and race pace. And Ferrari gave some hints of it in the sprint that they had a good package, but they really showed it in the race. They really stretched their legs and showed how much faster they could actually be, and Verstappen had no answer. I think, Afi, did you have a question? I don't know if you had one earlier or you missed it, but I may have misread that. I wanted to give you a chance to,
I think I did.
to talk.
I did, but I don't remember. It's okay. It probably wasn't important. It's okay.
What does that mean? What does that mean? The 2.5 Men meme, where it's like, I feel like I forgot something. It's like, well, if you forgot it, it wasn't important. And they were talking
just
about
the kid in the rain.
They replaced that image with the Alpine with the tire warmers on the grid. You know, it's just like, if you forgot it, it must not be important. You know,
it's not funny. It's pain.
Pain, especially for Sullivan as well too. We gotta wrap up, guys. This has been fun though, and we've had a blast. Oh, FSC, yeah, okay, continue.
I was about to say Mick Schumacher, Esteban Ocon with P5 and P6. That was very impressive. Like making the most of that midfield battle. We have to recognize that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Post points Schumacher's been pretty good. He got a couple of points under his belt, and he's kind of feeling himself. You know, he's feeling pretty good. You know, so I'm happy for him.
I'm convinced they've put the F2004 engine in his car, and we just don't know.
That would sound different, but I like the feeling.
Yeah, it would probably sound different, but
that would be shocking. Trust Gunter Steiner would probably pull something like that.
You just see a McLaren, and it's like, and then the house. Yeah, I'm sure fans would love that. You know,
that'd be awesome.
I know a Fisher could definitely would.
Yeah.
Guys, we gotta wrap up. Bryson, can you please give us your pearls of wisdom, your final thoughts, just like how you felt about the race and what you think we can look forward to next in France?
So there's two things. The first and most important thing is people who know me know that my love for this sport is boundless, really. But there are times when I question it. There are times when I feel like I'm watching it break into the 21st century in real time. And it does give me pause. It does make me question sometimes if it's worth the attention that I give it. And usually when I have that discussion, I decide, yes, it is, not because of the state that the sport is in today, but the state that the sport can be in tomorrow. So my primary word of wisdom is the best version of Formula One is yet to present itself. It's gone through some difficult times, especially today, but don't give up on it because of that. I haven't given up, and I hope others don't either. As far as the rest of the season, and especially the next race, watch out for Mercedes. They're building momentum, and they have a plan. I'm not giving away too much, but let's just say the car they raced in Paul Ricard may not be the same car they raced with today. So let's see how they go.
And all of the Team Silver Arrows are hooping and praying.
Oh my gosh. You guys.
That win. Listen, that win is coming. Okay,
No, it
easily
is.
could have won Silverstone if not for a few weird things.
I kind of wish he did.
Coming, you just have to be patient.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll be patient. I'll even take Russell winning, being the first win for Mercedes. Like, I will be happy with either one of them. Just
I'll tell him you said
win.
Yes.
Please do. Please do. And tell him that he's also invited on the show too, because we need help. Anyway, Bryson, thank you so much for being on our show. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and teaching us actually quite a fair bit, especially those who did not take physics in school.
Well,
just because I left.
Thank you for having me.
Well, why aren't you taking it now? Anyway, we can have that conversation later. And thank you guys, Pit Crew, so much for joining in today. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what we're doing good or not. Let us know what you thought about the show. We love to hear your thoughts. And we will see you in 2 weeks for the French Grand Prix, where we'll all be practicing our French. Will we?
Wow, I will be.
I gotta find. So
the whole podcast will be in French next week.
Oh,
yes, we'll all be in French. We wish we could.
I did not sign up for this. My French. I'm gonna get my Duolingo back. I'm gonna get on that.
And while you get on that, we're gonna wrap up. Take care,
Bryson,
everyone. Love you.
Before that, set up. And I know this is kind of ironic, considering more people probably know Bryson. But Bryson, where can people find you?
Oh,
right. I'm mostly on Twitter at the handle Natural Paradigm. Although I've ventured into Instagram recently. We'll see how that goes. Same handle.
Thanks.
And we'll be sure to share those on our Twitter and Instagram, which is Box Box Goss F1 both. And now I can end. I am so sorry that I missed that. Take care, everyone, Pit Crew, and we'll see you very soon for the French Grand Prix. Bye.
Bye.